it's almost more like, you know, players shooting themselves in the foot on like just trying to get. It's the guys that are really motivated trying to get better on their light days, on their recovery days. They're just doing too much. I know another example would be like guys who had success with long toss in the off season. They're really bought into long toss, and so that like in their mind they need to like hit that max long toss distance every single day to feel like, okay, I have it, and it becomes like this mental crutch. It's like it's my velo is going to disappear if I don't throw to like 330 feet every single day. So part of what I have to do for some of those guys is like have them not do that for a day, have them see like, look, my velocity is still exactly where it was, and then realize like, okay, let's adjust the dial to like minimum effective dose. There's like in lifting and anything really, there's maximum recoverable volume. That's like the absolute limit you could possibly recover from, and any more than that you just like can't perform. But then there's minimum effective dose, and that's like the minimum you could possibly do without everything just starting to degrade. And I would argue in season you want to be way more towards the minimum effective dose. Like if you can just lift once a week or twice a week, you know, a couple heavy sets and maintain your strength completely, wouldn't that be better than lifting like at the absolute most you possibly could get away with in season, to where if you did like one more rep, you're just like, you start to decrease performance.
Yeah.
So there's a window there where in which you can perform. I would argue we probably want to err more on the side of minimum effective dose though.
Because you're peaking for a game day. And I think that's the biggest
Exactly.
difference between college and pro is like you have guys that aren't going to play in college. At the pro level, you have to be ready to go. Like when your name's called, like it doesn't matter if you don't feel great, like you're on the mound. So let's like get ready for game day. I think you've got good experience with that, just like organizing your week, like training schedule to be like, okay, I have to be ready off the mound these days. What do I need to do leading up to that to be ready for game day?
Yeah, exactly. I think the minimum effective dose is the perfect kind of saying there to frame it. You look on the pro side, if guys want to get in upper, lower, whether it's a total body. And I feel like majority of really successful high-end relievers, they just basically split it up 3 to 4 days a week, upper, lower, however they want to kind of split their workload there. But they hit the minimum effective dose, and they know they're going to recover and be fine for a game, and they just continue doing that for 162 games. And I think that aids in recovery a ton. Going back to the throwing side of things, I always leave it open-ended. One thing that I've been trying to do a lot lately is also think about a little more, if we're trying to be a little more loose, kind of joint-centrated with throwing-related volume, or muscly to kind of get that load musculature-wise. So overload, underload, I don't prescribe what they're going to do. One day they might feel really good whipping a 5-ounce plyo around. The next day they might want to be a little lighter with a 1-pound ball for 5 throws. So I leave that completely open-ended to how they're feeling on a given day. Obviously, if he just had an outing, maybe I don't want him being super loose, whippy, quick with a 5-ounce ball. But I leave that completely up to them, hit the feel of what you want to do, and then move on.
A lot of the pulse prescription is for guys that have had struggles with like, you know, not peaking on game day. So like that only application would happen. And I think when you're taking the whole picture into account for guys that are like not having success like right now, a lot of guys like they're asking you, coming up to you like, why is my velo down? Is it something I'm doing mechanically? And like you as a coach can look at it and say, nothing's really going on differently. Let's take a look at the bigger picture, like nutrition season, like anything going on workload wise. Like there are more factors than just like mechanics for a lot of guys. I don't think they realize in season going into like overall workload.
Yeah, we can kind of touch on the psychology of the, you know, especially like the inexperienced, like high school or college pitcher. A lot of times, like before the season actually starts, there's this like overconfidence. There's, you know, there can be like, oh, I don't like need, you know, I don't need a coach anymore. Like I'm not in like velo phase. I'm not in like strength building phase. I can do this on my own. I got this. And they think that like they don't need any help. They just can. Nothing's ever going to go wrong. It's going to just be like smooth sailing, perfect scenario every single outing. And then what ultimately ends up happening is things never go perfect. If everything ever always been perfect, like we'd all be all-stars every year. Like every MLB guy would be an all-star. Like it never happens. Even the very best guys that we work with, like they'll have a little knee tweak or an adductor strain, or they'll lose the vert on their fastball, not quite know what's going on. Their command will be a little bit iffy for a couple weeks. So that's ultimately what does happen in reality. And like we know that as coaches because we've you know, coached hundreds and hundreds of guys through it. But in that moment, they're feeling really good at the end of the off season. Maybe they're watching this right now and they're very confident going into the season. What would you say is to your athlete if they're like, yeah, I don't really feel like I need you guys at this point, or just I don't really feel like I need coaching help right now?
I would say that all of the smartest people I know in this industry, if they are still throwing and actively trying to develop themselves, use somebody from the outside to assist them. Like, you can't see yourself through that lens. Like myself, you, Devin, when he throws, I ask Devin about my throwing all the time. I'll ask you stuff about my throwing. Like Dean Jackson, we talk about throwing all the time. Utilizing Nevin on the PT side. Like, we put people in our corner who can observe us from a different lens and kind of hold us accountable there. So I think you're pretty negligent if you think you can problem solve it all yourself and see yourself through a certain lens. It's why you've got to use your outside help with that.
I've honestly been in the boat recently too, where from a remote perspective, like, I see the bigger picture. Like, I think sometimes guys in season with their like pitching coach that they're seeing every day is going to harp on them, like, because I see them every day, like, let's work on something new every day. And like, as a remote coach, it's kind of like, let's take a step back, see the bigger picture. You don't need to be changing stuff up every day. So it's more of like, from a management perspective in season, it's just like you're managing the guys like weekly workload, like training wise, kind of throwing wise, you can see the bigger picture instead of just being like a pitching coach that has like 30 guys right in front of them every day, and it's tough to like manage each guy and like what they're doing. But like, from a remote perspective, you can see like, okay, this is kind of what your week looks like. Let's not go crazy like trying to change things mechanically. Like, we're in a good spot right now. Like, don't just keep, digging yourself a deeper hole. And I think that's where, like, talking to Mitch, he said he ran into issues like when his velo started to go down, instead of taking a step back and like working back towards what he was doing well, he kept digging himself deeper into like holes. And so like, a remote coach can just be like, hey, let's take a step back. This is what we're doing when you're having success. Let's not like dig ourselves a deeper hole and then kind of spend months trying to figure stuff out. Whereas like, you as a athlete and also coach have been through it, and I think you made the point that like, an issue that had taken you 3 months, you can take like a week with a guy now. Right. Like, you've done so much work, training throwing wise, to be like, okay, this issue now takes me a week to fix. It's not like a 3 month like keep digging ourselves a hole. We know how to fix it.
Right. I think that's such an important point as far as like removing the emotion from any sort of speed. Like, we already know going in there's going to be speed bumps. We tell athletes before they even sign up with us, there's going to be plateaus. Like, no one just gains a mile an hour a month for forever. Like, there's going to be plateaus. We already know going in from our standpoint